Sounds good. All right, here we go. So I guess we're good to get
All
going then.
right.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes.
Welcome to Orthodoxy First. My name is Luke Kendrat. I'm your host, and we're joined by a very special guest tonight. It's David, the real
Mhm.
Med White, and he
Well,
has his own YouTube channel, which is linked in the description. And today
mhm,
we are going to be talking about orthodoxy in politics and culture, which I'm sure many of you are interested to discuss because, of course, that's kind of the
mhm,
point of the show anyway. So to have a nice episode that's dedicated to that purpose and to talking about why it's important to analyze what our orthodoxy means in the current day, I think that's definitely an important thing to talk about.
mhm.
So, so David, if you want
Exactly.
to go ahead and just give yourself a quick introduction here. I'm going to make sure everything's all set
Yeah.
up.
All right. So, I am the real Medvite. You can call me David. That's my baptismal name. Uh, and I'm just a layman who does Orthodox videos, apologetics. 95% of my content is just Orthodox theology. It's not, obviously, I'm going to be talking about politics here, but it's really mainly about theology. It's about Christology. It's about church history. It's about the councils. It's That's what I mainly deal with. And sometimes I do book reviews. Sometimes I review the books that I've read. So, and a big thing of my channel is not that I want you to listen to me and be my fanboy, but I want you to learn about our church. I want you to learn about our theology. I want you to know more about God Himself. And that's what I'm trying to push you towards. That's my whole thing. Is that doesn't mean that I don't have other things to say about other topics, which I've done some videos on other topics. It's just that to me, the most important thing that I can do is study theology, learn about God, and help other people learn about Him. So that's usually what I deal with. Yeah. Uh,
Fantastic.
mhm. And
Um,
and and to be sure, I got to comment because just to protect, I am a neophyte in this. I am baptized. Although I haven't been in church for a long time because of COVID, and I live in a different city now. In Istanbul, my priest did give me his blessing. Uh, so I'm not a vagante guy who's doing his own thing. No, my priest knows what I'm doing. He knows about my channel, uh, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. So I am kind of new in that sense, but I don't think I have anything extra to say. I just got like because I did the stream with a couple of buddies against you bought a stream, and that like I was like I knew what I was gonna say. Now I'm like, how do you like it's usually better to say, oh, you already know who I am. But I don't have that status, right?
right.
I hope one day I can reach that status and say, you know who I am. I don't need to introduce myself.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I'm sure many
Hmm.
many people here, many people who follow Jay Dyer at all know
Hmm.
about your stuff, and so that's fantastic. But
Hmm.
yeah, so I know that you wanted to talk about just give kind of a bit of an overview about our Orthodox theology in politics, and give
Hmm.
a bit of an introduction to that if you want to. So
Hmm.
talk about that a
So
little bit.
if you have seen the reply stream I've done against Eric Ybarra and Matt Fradd's stream against Orthodoxy, the first thing I talked about is that they separate the mystical and the scholastic. So, for example, one of the common things that people say about Orthodoxy is that Roman Catholicism is scholastic and Orthodoxy is like the mystical. Well, if you mean scholastic, if you mean like medieval theological developments, then we're obviously not scholastic. But if you mean scholasticism by education, theology, philosophy, actually Orthodoxy is a lot more scholastic in that regard than Roman Catholicism and any other religion. It's that we don't oppose these two concepts. They are actually the very same concepts. They're the same thing. So they are what we will call just theology in general. And that's one of the main critiques I had against Eric Ibar and Matt Fradd is that they think, for example, the divine liturgy. They look at divine liturgy, and a lot of people make this mistake. They look at the divine liturgy and say, "Oh, it's just cool aesthetics, veneration, worship." When I look at it, I don't see any of that. I just see orthodoxy, the theology. Everything about it is culminated and manifested in the liturgy. So an example I gave, for example, is how these two are united. Is that Saint Gregory Palamas's theology, or for example, Saint Photius or Saint Cyril of Alexandria, their theology is commemorated in the ecumenical council, so they're binded in them. So when you worship in a Byzantine Orthodox way, it doesn't matter if you call yourself Roman Catholic, you are taking part of Orthodox theology in that manner. So that's what I wanted to start with here, is that the worship, the scholastic, the mystical part, it's all united. They're distinct, but they're united. They're made one. And the second point, the bigger point that I'm trying to make here about why theology is important, is that ultimately, and this is if you read God, History, Dialectic by Farrell, and a lot of people are going to say, oh, to that name, because unfortunately he is an apostate. But at the time when he was Orthodox, when he made this point, he was one of the first people in the modern day to kind of make this point, one of the first people in the public sphere, at least, to make this point that ultimately your culture, your nation, your theocultural development, so to speak, ultimately that comes from your theology. Everything that you believe in your culture, the way you see the world, it comes from your theology. It comes from how you understand theology. So a great example that I want to give is look at the debates of the toll houses, right? It seems kind of insignificant. It's just this toll house debate. But you look at the people who believe in the toll houses and you look at their politics and the way they see the world, and then you look at the people against the toll houses and the way they see the world, it's completely different, right? Pro toll house people tend to be more traditional. They tend to be more right wing and so on. They tend to be right about politics, basically. And then you look at anti-toll house people, they tend to be originistic, they tend to be universalists, they tend to be leftist, pro-gay marriage, and all these kind of like bad political stances. They tend to have these stances. And so it's an example of what it tells you about, your theological doctrines you believe in can influence your political views. Your beliefs of the afterlife can influence your political views. Even your views on like economy, it can influence that. And like Farrell pushed this even further and said, ultimately, the West's acceptance of the doctrine of the filioque, the West's acceptance, he's giving the example of the West, you can give an example of the Far Eastern religious as well. The same applies to them as well. You have they have these like very distinct culture that seems very foreign to how we understand life. But like the acceptance of filioque and the acceptance of Neoplatonic simplicity that they embedded in their doctrines, that has influenced how they view politics even, and has really pushed them uh, uh, to this way. And what Farrell is getting at is what the church fathers have gotten at. So, for example, the early church fathers consider even the slightest deviation of heresy can lead you to terrible consequences. So, for example, the Cappadocian fathers, when they were debating Apollinarians were those who believed that Christ did not have a human mind. They understood that if they were to accept Apollinarian Christology, it will be a rejection of the human mind, right? It will ultimately lead to a rejection of the intellect, the rejection of the human mind, and what it will mean is pietism, this kind of weak pacifistic view in the sphere of politics will be implemented over time. They understood that. Saint Gregory Palamas, for example, understood, and he made this argument against Barlaam, is that ultimately, if you have this view of God where you do not distinguish his actions, his operations with his essence, you will ultimately go down the route of atheism. Look at what's happening in the West today, atheism. So St. Gregory Palamas already made this argument hundreds of years ago, and he hit it right on the money. So all of these examples together, you can, I think, very clearly see that ultimately, when you look at culture, it comes not just from ethnicity and whatnot, but it comes from your theological view. The theological view is the foundation of your culture, and your theology, the correct theology, Orthodox theology, does not change culture into something else, but it allows a cultural repentance and transforms the culture to what it can best become. And that's what happened to, for example, Greeks. That's what happened to Russians. And the moment they reject it, look at Greeks now. They're starting to reject it. And you look at their culture, and it's just become this weak, oh, I used to be really cool 2000 years ago. Well, look at you now. You're not cool. Or Russians, right? Oh, we used to be so great like 100 years ago. Actually, you weren't, right? You were great 200, 300, 400 years ago. And that's kind of like the point that I want to start with as the foundation, is that ultimately it all leads and cultivates into the liturgy, the worship of God, and how we worship God. And a lot of these concepts, a lot of the study about God, a lot about theology, it's all united. It's not separate. We don't separate these things, right? We don't say, oh, we have mysticism here, theology here. No, they're both together, and you can't separate them. And ultimately, that's a very key point that I want to get across amongst how theology influences culture and whatnot. So that's basically what I have to say. That comes to my mind right now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that a lot of people agree with you on that, and the way that truly the way that we perceive God is going to define the way that we act in
Mm-hmm.
everyday life. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that gets back to that very Western idea, of separating
Mm-hmm.
the church, of separating
Mm-hmm.
God from the rest of your daily life. And just like you said,
Exactly.
you look at these modern problems that we're facing. What's the cause of it all? Right, it's the cause of this
Mm-hmm.
separation from God. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very unfortunate, and that's every government, every major government in the world, and especially I'm thinking in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
United States, looks at this idea of, well, we have to separate the church from the state, and we have to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that there's in no way is there any connection between what the
Mm-hmm.
Catholics are doing, what the Orthodox Christians are doing, with the Protestants, whatever it may be, what they're doing with what the state is doing. And it's very unfortunate. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely
Mm-hmm.
a cause for everything going on in this increasing amount of
Mm-hmm.
secularism around the world now, and where we're seeing these growing atheistic
Yeah.
movements.
And as a small note, like people try to look for bad intentions in these organizations. Like they look for bad intentions in the Roman Catholic Church and try to make them seem like the ultimate bad guys. I don't see it that way. When I look at the Roman Catholic Church and its history, I just see their theology being applied to reality. That's all I'm seeing. So ultimately, it's the wrong views on God they have that kind of led to. It's not. I don't think it's by bad intentions. I think the theologians of that time had good intentions. It's just that, like, we just saw the culmination of their theology in reality, and look at what's happening, right? And that's kind of like, you can say, for example, like a lot of people, I guess it's like, I'm not a Romanides fan. I don't like the guy, but this idea of Western captivity that some Greek theologians talk about, it's when they talk about that, I kind of agree with the point that, like, yeah, that when they some of the people adopt that mindset, and it can explain the destruction of their culture as well. I don't go too far to attack our own saints for being captive to the West, like they did with Saint Peter Mohila. I don't do that kind of stuff. I think that's way too far. I don't like attacking our saints and say that kind of stuff. But in some regards, it is true even in Orthodox countries, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Yeah, it's not great, but you're right. And I think what you were saying earlier about the Catholics, and it's just that the reason for all these problems is their incorrect theology.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have that essence energy distinction, I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
problems can easily arise. And I think that
Yeah.
it's very very clearly laid out how we can interact with God in the Orthodox
Mm-hmm.
faith, which is
Yeah.
unique.
Mhm. I mean, even at their time, like when they were dealing with pagans, it was pretty much explicit, like how it was going and how these debates were centered around. I mean, again, I'm not going to recommend you follow the order, but the book God History Dialectic Volume 1 specifically is just, it really shows you what's going on in history. Like it's a really good, uh it's a very orthodox explanation of how history has been, like dealing with all these pagan myths. A lot of the stuff that's going on is just a revival of the understanding. One thing that's not a revival, which I think we're going to be talking about later on, is going to be secularism. That is, I think, ultimately like the biggest thing that we're going to be dealing with. You kind of touched on, but we can talk about that, or if you can talk about later on about secularism if you want to.
Yeah,
Because
I'd love to hit on that a little bit. I think
hmm
that's definitely one thing that was on the list for tonight. And I think when you look at these movements, I mean, it definitely predates Bolshevik
hmm
Russia, but I think that's one of the key points to hit on is like, well, what was that driving force behind the Bolshevik Revolution, and
hmm
how has that kind of moved into this attitude of many modern secularists and atheists today? That spirit of revolution, right? And
hmm
is the root of that truly just godlessness? I mean, it's something that we
yeah.
need to kind of figure out. And I think that's the driving force behind these revolutions, like the French Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution. It's this
hmm
godlessness and this atheism. And
hmm
so I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I 100% agree. And before I move on, I just want to say, um, due to the place where I'm living at, it's raining right now. Usually when it rains, it means my electricity cuts off. If it cuts out, don't worry, I'll try to connect from my phone or my phone mobile data. So if I cut out, don't be surprised. It might happen. I don't. Maybe it won't happen. Just going to give it as a warning. Now, uh, on secularism. Now, we need to kind of identify what it exactly means. When I look at secularism to me, the best way to describe just means uh, just telling God, look, God, you have your own divine laws. Okay, that's fine. Whatever you think. We're gonna have our own laws, and we're going to do things our own way. And I think the greatest dissertation against secularism is not from any of these academics. In a way, it's not even the New Testament, but it's the Old Testament. I think is the greatest dissertation against secularism, because you look at the book of Kingdoms, right? The four book of Kingdoms, or you want to call them Book of Samuel and Book of Kings. You want to look at maybe even Genesis. You want to look at the Pentateuch in general, and you see this consistent theme that there is a nation, and the moment that nation separates, ergo becomes secular, is when things go really bad. That's how I see a lot of the times in the Old Testament. When Israel becomes secular, things go bad. When Israel becomes this mono religious entity, things start going well again. And I think there's a lesson to be learned here. And why am I also talking about the Old Testament is uh, secularism, right? A lot of the laws today you can say are secular laws, but I want to hit on, for example, Saint Justinian, right? Even in today's legal system, Saint Justinian is one of the most influential people in the legal system. Even if they pretend not to act as if he is, he is. He's the one who wrote an extensive code of law, Codex Justinianus, and European law is based on his. Now, if you ask Saint Justinian what his code of law is based on, he's going to tell you the Old Testament, right? He's going to tell you the Old Testament is ultimately my basis for the laws in here. And that's what he cites. That's how he understands morality and how we should act in a Christian state. And um, and for example, a lot of people, like, you cite Leviticus or other books for moral laws, and they say, oh, but linen clothing, like mixed fabrics, or they say, oh, but they were fulfilled in Christ. Saint Justine will say, okay, they were fulfilled in Christ, but there's still moral truths behind it, and there's no reason why we shouldn't kind of just repeat them today. And that's how we understood it. And what I'm getting at is, even today's secular law is ultimately based on the Old Testament, because it's based on Saint Justinian, whose law is based on the Old Testament. So in the European spirit today, there's still a Christian understanding. That it's I'm not going to say Judeo-Christian. That's a false term. Judeo is when you put Christ on, when you crucify Christ, right? That's the Judeo part. The Christian understanding of law and morality is still, in some sense, present in the European mindset, even though they try their best to divorce it. They try their best to, like, avoid it and try to get away from it. Um, but ultimately, again, secularism, the best way it's explained is just telling God, look, we don't care about your laws, and that's not how you live. So a Christian should never be secular. Ultimately speaking, he should never be secular. He should always oppose secularism. He should always oppose secularism as the enemy. Um, I think the roots of the modern eras ultimately is indeed secularism. It is secularism that causes all of these problems, and whether you want to call it a byproduct or whether you want to call it the devil's innovative new doctrine, you know, that can be debatable, but it's something that has to be 100% avoided. And again, thankfully, we have bishops that do identify. I mean, I believe even Patriarch Bartholomew spoke against secularism, so he kind of understands the problem. Um, but again, um, I want to kind of summarize this by saying, just read the Old Testament, read it. Just read the Old Testament. Look at what happens when Israel or Judah becomes secular, when God's nation becomes secular. Look at what happens. Just look at what happens. Just
Yeah,
observe
yeah,
them, and you'll see what
exactly.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's exactly right. I think you would agree with the statement that secularism leads to the end of nations. Ultimately, and when you have
Yep.
secular laws being put in place, and I think this is one of the dumbest things that I see, and it drives me
hmm
crazy when there are arguments that are against abortion or something along that
hmm
line, referring back to like the Constitution, and it's like, well, hang on a second. I think this goes deeper than anything that is written law here. That's secular law. We need to take a look at really what are we doing, right? We're murdering children
Mhm.
in that case. And that's something that
Mhm.
goes far deeper than anything that our forefathers could have written up here in America, or
Mhm.
any secular leaders could have ever written up. It just simply is
Mhm.
derived from our morals. And obviously, where do our morals come from
Mhm.
but God? And so we do need to refer back to
Mhm.
scripture, to the teachings of the fathers, and we
Mhm.
need to understand why fundamentally we can't accept secularism and we can't always coincide
Mhm.
with these secular laws. And that's, like you said, the laws of the church and the laws of the state don't always match up. There are differences, for
Mhm.
good reason. So definitely
Mhm.
something to consider. I mean, and I think that it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that we have more and more. You're right about Patriarch Bartholomew and his statements on secularism, but I
Mhm.
think it's unfortunate when you have Archbishop Elpidoforos here in America who may not share that
Uh,
same sentiment. And you saw him, of course,
uh,
marching with Black Lives Matter,
yeah.
and he's
I made a video. I made two videos against him. I mean,
really,
yeah. Ugh.
it's messy, and it's
Mhm.
it doesn't bode well for the future of America, and I think deeper than that, it doesn't bode well for the future of Orthodoxy in America.
Mhm.
But it's so yeah, definitely not. We should not look to princes, of course. It says that in Scripture. We
Mhm.
we look to God. We look to what has been
Mhm.
written down for us by God, by the disciples, right? And what have we been given? And I think that
Mhm.
we need to really look at that from that Christian perspective, not from the secular perspective, just
Mhm.
like you were saying. Yeah, and
Exactly.
I'm a little bit curious. How
Mhm.
how would you say you came to where you are politically now? What
Mhm.
what drove you
Yeah.
to these now beliefs that you hold?
So I'll preface by saying this. My politics did bring me to Orthodoxy, but it wasn't the reason why I stayed at Orthodoxy. That's not one thing I will be the first one to admit that I didn't really make a video explaining my full conversion story and that whole like background because I don't think really people care unless people really want to. I'm not really gonna explain it. It's not because I have anything to hide. It's uh, it's just that it might not be interesting. It's long, it's tedious, it's not interesting. But my politics, okay, so my political journey, I really started to care about politics like 4 years ago, 5 years ago in 2015. Um, and that's even before that. So I was browsing the image board that should not be named, the random board of that image board that should not be named when I was in eighth grade or seventh grade or something. And I was browsing a board that focuses on the politics of the modern world of of that website, right? So um, in 2015, this is I think high school, second year high school, if I'm not too wrong, is when I started to get more into politics. And we talked about this before. You know about Model United Nations, MUN conferences. I was studying at Turkey at the time, so I started getting to MUN conferences, Model United Nations conferences. For those who don't know what they mean, they're basically just UN simulations, right? I like to distinguish it that like there's a GA, General Assembly. Those are for the noobs. The real stuff, like the crisis councils and all that stuff, the real stuff is for the experienced guys. And I've attended like 15 uh, conferences, so I know how that role goes, and that kind of like helped me get interested into world politics and all that kind of stuff. Over time, my political positions changed. I started getting into Discord to do debates with politics against leftists and all that. Um, my views changed, and I'm willing to admit that I did used to be an unironic Nahat CE in 2016. Then I started to shift into usually it's libertarianism to that. It was reversed to me. It was like extremism to libertarianism in some ways. I was still like nationalistic, pro-fascism in a lot of ways, but I had a lot of libertarian baggage because at that time I was like I was listening to a lot of political pundits like Gavin McInnes and all that, Nigel Farage. I listened to a lot of these political guys, especially in 2016 during the Trump election, and I read Mises a lot. I liked the political, economic views, and that kind of like, I ended up becoming this nationalist, capitalist kind of guy. And then business nationalism, what they call it, didn't succeed in the U.S., but it was a thing in some part of U.S. history. And then over time, I just went to really extreme that like I don't really know how I can explain, but like some really extreme like I don't even want to repeat, but I used to be the kind of guy who said, yeah, I'm pro-life, but I'm pro-choice for certain ethnicities. Like I used to be that kind of a guy. And like what really pushed me to orthodoxy is kind of, it's just I used to kind of become like I eventually became this like diaspora Greek chauvinist guy because I was, oh, turns out I'm Greek, guys. And because I am ethnically Greek, half at least, but like a lot of Turks are, right? But um, I became this kind of guy, and like I talked with a lot of Russian friends, Slavic friends who are Orthodox, and they say, oh, Orthodoxy is this based religion, and it's the real, original, authentic Christianity. And like that sounded really pleasing to me. So I looked into it over time. I started to get warmer and warmer, and I became Orthodox while I was in Turkey. And when I moved to the U.S. to study in 2018, the first thing I did was go to an Orthodox church. And over time, when I went to the church, I went to liturgy, talked with my priest over time. My political stances, just like the ones that are incompatible with orthodoxy, just eroded, and I just said, I'm gonna give up. Yeah, that whole stuff about pro-choice for certain ethnicities, that's trash. I'm dropping that. Like that's obviously incompatible. Over time, that's another thing I realized is that a lot of like right-wing extreme people, when they become orthodox, they drop their baggage that's incompatible with orthodoxy. But a lot of like left-wingers become orthodox, they don't do that. They don't do that. They keep their baggage. There's still pro-gay marriage. There's still a lot of bad stuff. So over time, that's how I like become. And another thing is that I used to write for this website called Republic Standard. It is a right-wing electronic magazine. Some of my articles had 5,000 clicks, which is actually quite a lot. I didn't even have a YouTube channel back then. Some of my videos that are political, like the 8 modern gods of society, that's based on an article I wrote on Republic Standard. That's 100% based on that. The video I did on Stefan Molyneux being bad, that video is based on one of the articles I wrote at that time. So um, in 2018, 2019, I got interested in politics. Over time, I started getting into theology, and that's when uh, that's really how I can conclude with my like how my political views developed is that ultimately I just kind of like put a stop and just okay, theology time. So that's the best way I can explain it. It's long, as I said, but
No, sure,
yeah.
yeah. That okay. Yeah, and
Mhm,
I think that a lot of people share that sentiment with you. What I found interesting, you said that you had like kind of a reverse pipeline where it's like you were initially an extremist going to a
mhm,
libertarian. I think for a lot of people, myself included, it's like we had that libertarian
yeah,
phase and then we kind of shot up and
mhm,
we're pipelined, from maybe like something
yeah,
like Turning Point USA and then went further than
mhm,
that. And so yeah,
yeah.
very interesting that I mean, I guess kind of
I
circled
just
back.
mixed. If you ask me at the time, I would say mine is a mixture of economic libertarianism and social authority. That's what I will explain it as. And
Okay.
in a way, it's still like that. Okay, it's still like that. Like I am monarchist, right? For example, but economically speaking, I'm not like a complete, oh, open up my free market.
Right.
But and I know that like people like Mrs. A lot of them are dodgy people, but I still see a lot of things that like what impressed me about what they say is that a lot of the stuff they say kind of like is in line with promoting traditionalist family structure and like that's really pleased me. I really like that about their critique of like modern economic theory is that it's anti-traditional actually. um, and that's one of the few things that libertarians don't really like talking about, but I noticed that about them. It's like, this should be talked about more often, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely should.
Hmm.
Yeah, and another point I wanna hit on, you were talking about left-wing converts to Orthodoxy and how a lot of the time you don't see them dropping their baggage in the same way that right-wing converts do. Uh, and I know that you've made some comments about, like, the Mole
Hmm.
Monastery, and I don't know if many of
Hmm.
our, viewers here know what that is, but I
Hmm.
think that it's attractive, shall we say, to a lot of converts to the Orthodox faith, and many people watch their videos. I mean, they get way more views than I
Hmm.
do, right? They get upwards of 70,000 views on their videos,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, it doesn't seem like they are completely in line with Orthodox teaching.
Mhm.
Do you want to hit on that a little bit and talk about what exactly they
Yeah,
are?
so I made a video on Mole Monastery. It got brigaded by Mole Monastery fanatics, which by the way, a lot of their viewer base aren't even Orthodox. A lot of them, they openly say in the comment section, they're like, I'm a Baptist priest, I'm a Roman Catholic deacon, and I love your videos. Yeah. If you're an Orthodox monk and people who are watching are heterodox and they're not willing to convert, you're doing something wrong. Okay, that's number one. But in general, okay, so the Mole Monastery thing, Seraphim Aldi, they're the same people. Okay, so here's the thing with Seraphim Aldi, or Father Seraphim Aldi, he's a monk. He is a monk who's trying to make this monastery in Britain, in some island, Mole Island, right? Uh, he doesn't have any oversight. His bishop doesn't know English. Uh, he can basically do whatever he wants. So that's one thing you need to keep in mind when I'm about to say the things that I'm about to say. His political views are very leftist, but aside from political, I mean, I thought like as a monk, you're supposed to be out of the world, but here you are engaging with the things of the world. I mean, what's going on here? But then if you're going to do that, at least be like Saint Paisios and have good views. At least have good views in some manner. But he like talks about all the Paris shooting, for example. Like a lot of people died in Paris shooting in 2016 during the election, whatnot. He would like look at that and like, oh, that really makes me sad. By the way, ban guns. Like, what? What are you talking about, dude? Like, you're telling people to ban guns and like, oh, like this parachuting was bad, but you know what's worse? The people responding to it. And I look at that, and it's just like I hear that, and I can just turn on CNN and I can hear the same exact thing. And a friend of mine said this, like he commented in his one, he said, if I want to hear this trash, I turn on CNN. And he's 100% right, right? So he's basically promoting leftist political views and all of that kind of stuff. And and a lot of the stuff he says is contradicting Orthodox. You know, he basically has this like, oh, war is inherently evil view. I mean, buddy, Brody, explain the Old Testament to me, please.
Right.
Like the only way you can explain that way is by going Marcionite, right? That's the only way you can do that. So there is that, but my video didn't really hit on any of that, on any of those. I think those issues alone are good enough. Like there's a very bad spirit behind it. Oh, another thing my video didn't hit on. Look at the icons this guy makes. They look terrifying. They don't look like Orthodox icons. Look at Mole Monastery icons. They look like freak shows, man. And he even like shows them to you. He's like, hey, I make these icons. Another thing that I heard people say that he did. Um, he apparently you can go to his website and you pay him money and he prays for it. Like, pay me money so I can pray for it. He's like, that's a very strange scheme. That's like a business scheme. That's not a, I
Yeah.
mean, like I know monasteries do that, but they don't do it online. Okay, so if you go to a monastery, you like donate to the monastery and you like write names for the monks to pray. I know that happens, and that's a good thing. Commercializing it online, it's strange. It's very weird to me. So it gives you a couple ideas about this person. First of all, he knows his head around tech. You say he has 7,000 views, right?
Yeah, it's like
He used to
70,000.
have he used to have 3K, 4K subscribers not too long ago.
Wow.
He had as much as subscribers as I used to have, 1K even. I remember that. And he got a 10K subscriber boost in like a week or even less than a week. At most a month, if I'm not too correct. He got a 10K subscriber boost in a month. Now, I know subscriber boosts happen for channels. For me, one day I got 150 subscribers out of the blue. And I was like, what? How does it? I didn't make any videos that could justify this. So anomalies like that do happen. What? But an anomaly of 10K subscribers, that's not natural. So it tells me that this person knows his way around technology. So what I covered in the video I made as well is, first of all, he's making this monastery. You look, his revenue is online. You can go check it out. He made $1 million in revenue in 4 years. Now, if a monk makes $1 million in revenue in 4 years, that is you ask me, that's questionable. You look at the expenditure, it doesn't justify that revenue. Okay, it just does not. And one of the theories that I made is basically he uses that revenue to travel more to attain even more revenue because he asks for money. I know a guy on Twitter. He's not. I know a guy on Twitter. He said, I know this guy for more than a year, by the way. Apocalypsis. Shout out to him. Great guy. He said this guy went to my church one day a couple of years ago. And he straight up said, you Orthodox have to support gay marriage. Like, he's not saying you have to love it and you have to, he said you have to support it. You have to support it. He said this in an Orthodox church. And a lot of people say, oh, that's just slander. Like, no, I don't think that guy will lie about that. And another thing is I do see him say something like that. And that's, I don't remember, as far as I know, he didn't even address that. So maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But yeah, I mean, just all of these things culminating together, you start to realize that he's a little bit of a dodgy character. And remember what I said at the first, he doesn't have oversight. This is a very key point. He doesn't have oversight. So what's stopping him from taking all that money and then just disappearing? What's stopping him? Because his bishop isn't. And a lot of people criticize me and saying, how dare you attack a monk like that? I'm sorry. Look, if he had oversight, I will not be attacking him. I will be doing this video on his bishop. But I would be attacking him if he had oversight. It's just that here's the thing. If you're a monk and you don't have oversight from your bishop, you don't have any oversight from anyone in the church, who are you held accountable for? The laity. That's exactly what happened at Florence. The laity held the bishops accountable. And people say, oh, it's St. Mark of Ephesus. Yes. Without the laity, St. Mark of Ephesus could have done nothing. The laity held the bishops accountable alongside with St. Mark of Ephesus. So it's the same kind of idea. This principle is in Orthodoxy. It's not like people worship power in Orthodox, and that kind of annoys me a lot. Oh, you can do all sorts of heinous things, but look, you can't say that to him. He's a bishop. You have to respect him. I'm sorry, but I have to, he is more accountable if he's a bishop. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but he's more accountable. You
Right.
have to speak against that to let them know we can't let that sort of thing happen. And if they do this kind of stuff, we have to say, look, we as your laity, we don't like that. Stop. This is against Orthodoxy. You have to stop this. And that's what I try to do, is that letting him bishop, like I told people, you should let his bishop know, you should do all of this stuff. And it seems like nothing has changed, right? So 8,000 views, I don't care. I'd prefer if that video had only 100 views, as long as 100 of those people that watched that video let his bishop know. That didn't happen. So um, and again,
Yeah.
look, if you haven't seen that video, you can watch it, click like on it, because I don't usually do that, but like that video got brigaded. Like, he knows his stuff. He knows how to do inter YouTube channel warfare. I've noticed that. Because a lot of the people that were like brigading the comments, it's the same kind of spirits that, oh, how dare you accuse him of that? How dare you? It's like pietism, right? This weak pietism. It's the same kind of spirit behind all of these people. And it's not orthodox. It's just secularist liberalism. That's the spirit behind it. It's an evil spirit. It's not an orthodox spirit behind it.
Right.
And if someone like them asks it, do you retract anything you said in that video? I'll say that, you know what? I will apologize. I will apologize for one thing. I did not say enough. That's what I apologize for. I did not say
Right.
enough.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. And I think the problem is with these guys like the Mole Monastery, and obviously I want to talk a little bit about Orthodoxy and
Hmm.
dialogue because they've been causing some problems for some of
Hmm.
my friends recently. But the problem with these sorts of groups, I guess, is that
Hmm.
they are kind of dominating or trying to dominate the conversation in Orthodoxy.
Hmm.
And I think that a lot of young men and women who feel disenfranchised with the current state of affairs run to
Hmm.
Orthodoxy for help, right? Because they see it as this beautiful faith and this beautiful way of life that has maintained the test of time and has not gone the way of the Protestants and has not gone the way of the Catholics in terms of modernization. And they hold on to it. And that's what, they find beauty in it. And I think that when you have these sorts of people or organizations corrupting that, you're going to leave people
Hmm.
even more confused maybe than they were when they started becoming Orthodox, or
Hmm.
and I think that's a big problem, and that's why these
Hmm.
guys need to be called out, and it's sad,
Hmm.
but we need to watch it, and we need to make sure that the integrity of the Orthodox faith is preserved and
Yep.
upheld. And Orthodoxy and dialogue isn't doing that. The Mall Monastery isn't doing that. They're just
Hmm.
confusing people, right? And I think that
Yep.
if you're someone who you go from reading, if your spiritual father instructs you to read Father Seraphim Rose, for example, or St. John Chrysostom. I know those are two, polar
Hmm.
opposites, but reading the fathers, shall we say, and then you go on, you read one of these guys from Orthodoxy and Dialogue, and you read something that they've written,
Yeah.
it's going to be entirely contradictory, and you're going to
Hmm.
see full support for homosexuality, for abortion.
Hmm.
Where
Yep.
find me, please find me some place in the canons or in scripture where we can actually where we can defend this. You can't. You only see it on these guys with their degrees,
The,
whatever, who are claiming to defend it.
the only thing you will see in scripture for people that support these things, I cannot say, because if I said it, I will demonetize your channel. I will demonetize my channel, and we will both be removed from YouTube. But you know what I'm talking. The only thing that scripture talks about people like this, their fate is not a happy one, even on this earth. So, yeah, exactly. I 100% agree. In regards to paganism in dialogue, um, because that's what I call them. Public orthodoxy, no, public paganism. That's what you are. In terms of those people, the best thing you can do, for example, on a local level, first of all, is basically talk to your priest, let him know about this. Hey, look, Father, whatever you're going to do with this information, it's all yours, because, who am I to tell you what you can do? All I'm going to say here, look at these guys, look at what they promote. You don't like them, Father, do you? Yeah, you don't like them. Um, what do you want to do with them? You can do with them. And maybe he can cite it in the sermon and basically let everyone in the parish know, okay, there is a website called, or like, because what a lot of priests do, they don't name the websites. And I don't like that, you see.
Right.
They say, oh, don't look for orthodoxy online. Well, that's a very broad term. Does that mean me? Because I mean, what I do is Orthodox theology. Does that mean Father Spiridon? Should we not look to Father Spiridon? Should we not look
Right.
to, I mean, Father Peter here? Should we not look to them? Right? Should we not look
Right.
to consecrators like Jay? Like, who exactly? So we can't be put on the same basket, obviously. And they have to be named. And all I'm like just letting them know, look, there's these websites. If you want to name them, for example, there's a suggestion. You can name them in your homily, and everyone in the parish will instantly know, yes, this website is a bad website. If someone posts an article from this website, I'll know these guys are subversive, do not listen to them, right? So this can help on a micro level. Online level, ridicule them and make them look like a bunch of idiots. That's my technique, at least. When I look at people, when I look at paganism in dialogue or public paganism, I just ridicule them, make fun of them, show how they're wrong, why they're wrong, and then just basically associate everyone who supports that or everyone on their side as degenerate, because that's what they are. I mean, they are like that. And I'm not, and this is not coming from a place of, oh, you're being judgmental. Oh, blah, 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 blah. No, 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 no. What I'm doing is what Christ
Subjective.
did. When Christ, yeah, what Christ, like, for example, let me give you an example. Christ called, and we know the purpose of it, like the priests in our homilies have said this a lot of times if you go to church. Christ called a woman a dog for being a Gentile. Now, obviously, the purpose is to show her extreme humility, but he still called her a dog for being a Gentile, right? At the end of the day. And the people beforehand will have that, they will share that kind of sentiment, right? I'm not saying Christ was basically like I don't know, like this, I don't know, but I'm just pointing out that this kind of terminology is scriptural, okay, and it's patristic. The church father used this. I'm reading St. Gregory of Nyssa's Apollinarian treatises right now, and in the book that is translated, there's the guy who translated made a 1.5 page just showing St. Gregory of Nyssa's insults against Apollinarius. Like the way he insults him is like, whoa. So some of them is very creative. One of the insults like, oh, we have to get a divinizer to even understand what this idiot is saying. Like this kind of stuff. Like, or like this very clear friend of ours, like sarcastic way. Oh, he's just unclear. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. That kind of stuff. And we have to like bring. We don't. I can't respect these people. That's the first thing. This can be extreme for some people. Or heterodoxy in dialogue, public paganism, I do not respect you. I do not respect you. You're not Orthodox. You're animals. You're enemies of the faith, and I will treat you as the animals and the enemies of the faith you are. Now, you can't say, I was wrong. I went against the church. The moment you do that, you're my brother. But right now, to me, you're a heathen and a tax collector, because that's what the scripture says, right? If you warn them, if they don't listen to you, they are to be to you as heathen and tax collectors. I believe that tax collectors. Well, heathen, I'm sure it was stated there. So that's how we should treat them as. And all I'm saying is to you, look, just treat them as Scripture tells you to treat them. I'm not saying you to do this kind of like strategy. I'm just saying what Scripture tells you to do. Listen to what Scripture says, because it does have good advice in these regards.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest problem, and I mentioned earlier, is like people are being led away from the faith when they're reading this stuff. They're not really reading what Orthodoxy is, and it's beginning to present a major problem. And they called out. They call Orthodoxy in Dialogue specifically. They have Twitter. What do they have? Like 600 followers
Yeah.
on Twitter, something like that. They're not a huge account. I can't imagine that they possibly get a lot of clicks on their blog. But
let's not forget the Fortamites. They are the biggest one.
That's true too. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think like Orthodoxy and Dialogue. What I was going to say is they ended up calling out Michael Sisko, and he runs St. Edward's Media. And they were saying, because he started this petition, I don't know if you heard about it, to like reopen our churches.
I heard it. Yeah.
And I mean, I signed it obviously because it's something that is critical right now and a major problem the church is facing. We need to be united on these issues. All of Orthodoxy needs to, like the ecumenical councils did, speak with one mind and one voice and one heart and proclaim the same faith. When it comes to the shutting down of churches, can't support it. Right? When it comes to our Archbishop here in America marching with BLM, can't support it. When it comes to our Archbishop supporting a Biden presidency, can't get behind it. And we need, and I think that's the problem. I was at the March for Life last year in DC, and it was great. There were a lot of Orthodox Christians, and we had a big group. But what I ended up looking around, and I saw that there were these Catholic I guess dioceses, I guess is the best word. They had their banners and stuff, and each one of those like under those diocesan banners, each one of those groups had about the same amount as total Orthodox Christians. And it's like, it's disappointing because we don't publicize this type of stuff enough, and I don't think that we drive these points home enough. We don't talk about these relevant political issues often enough. And these are the issues that end up sprouting up, is you have these heretical groups come out of the woodwork and end up presenting heretical ideas and confusing the faithful. And I mean, it's incredibly disappointing. So, and I mean, for those of you, if you haven't, be sure to sign Mike Sisko's petition, because we need to get cracking on this before we end up facing a bigger problem than we were back in March and April. But that being said, it's funny. I was driving to the gym the other day, and I saw like on behind or like a bumper sticker on someone's car, and it said Jesus was a liberal. And it's like, I'm sure you've heard that one before. Many of us have heard that one before, and that is one of my least favorite criticisms from the left or from liberals, is that Jesus Christ was a liberal. Yeah, okay. Show me where possibly any of Scripture could be interpreted that way. It's just, it's ridiculous. And they're like, oh, he was a socialist, a liberal, and really, you don't think that maybe there's a chance that God himself transcends these political ideologies of liberalism or conservatism, and presents us with the best way to behave politically, right? And truly, like you were talking about earlier, combining our Scripture with our politics, and that's how we'll be successful. But
Jesus, oh my goodness. How do people believe? Look, my background, I am not really, like, I'm not American. I'm not really, I know American culture, but I'm not American. I don't think like an American. I think like I don't know. I just think like a guy. And when I was never influenced by like this kind of American Protestantish thinking. So when I hear, and this isn't specifically American Protestant kind of stuff, but it kind of is, right? Like Biden's a Catholic. I look at him as a Protestant. He's basically a Protestant. But when I look at that, I just can't fathom. It's like, how do these people even think this way? I feel like, this kind of joke about Americans, like, oh, Americans, the only country they think that matters is their own. You know what? That is true. for a specific subset of Americans. I've only seen American liberals act like that.
Mm.
I've never ever seen, I've never seen a conservative American be like, oh yeah, like I've seen them, I've seen a lot of them be very in tune with international politics, actually.
Yes.
Not the politicians per se, but the politicians, uh, we hate them. But I mean, we love them, we want to be Christian, but we don't like them, right? But
Right.
liberals have been the most jingoistic people I've ever known in my life. American
Mm.
liberals, the way they think is very jingoistic. And why am I getting at that? Is that when they look at scripture, they're not thinking of it in the sense like, oh, these people were in the like a Middle East, like the Middle Eastern culture of their time, Roman culture. They don't know. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be swearing. They don't know dog shit, anything about Roman culture at that time. They don't know jack shit. They're idiots. They have no idea what they're talking about. For example, they say, oh, they escaped to Egypt. Jesus was a refugee. You are an idiot. You are a freaking idiot, and you are a degenerate idiot. And I hope you actually buy a brain from the supermarket. Even a chicken brain will function better than what you have right now. You are an actual freaking idiot. Egypt was part of Roman Empire. That's like going from Minnesota to Wisconsin. Like it's the same thing. It's the same
Yep.
thing. It's like
Yeah.
moving from Minnesota to Wisconsin. You're not moving to another country. These people think Egypt was a country at that time. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
Egypt was a nation. It's a nation under the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
They're Roman citizens.
Exactly.
The people of the Roman Empire, dumbass.
Yep.
I just can't
Yep.
understand how these
They
people think
can't
this way.
they can't process that maybe things functioned a little differently back, 2000 years ago.
I'm sorry,
And maybe
like
we didn't have the
mhm,
same, maybe the United States wasn't
exactly.
around. We didn't have
And
the same.
another thing, Jesus, like they have this line of thinking like, oh, like Roman Empire, this like bad patriarchal autocratic society, and Jesus
Mhm.
came and he just destroyed all of that and went against it. Okay, let me assume that is exactly what happened. Let's
Mhm.
also assume the natural thing that that's what his followers assumed, and let's
Right.
also assume that that's what the followers assume, like the 12 apostles, the 70 apostles, those that were taught by the apostles, right? The early church. First of all, we don't see this in the early church, buddy.
Right.
No shot. That's number one. Number two, um, if that were true, you will see this in a Christian country. What do we see in Christian countries? Uh, well, for the first Christian countries like Armenia and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
let's look at the real Christian country, empire, the Roman
Mhm.
Empire. They act as if the Roman Empire dissolved. You are an idiot. The Roman Empire dissolved in 1453. If I
Yep.
want to get a hot take, I will say it's 1461. like
Yeah.
like the remnant states, if you want to include them, I will include them ultimately, like as the Roman presence.
Right.
But Roman Empire existed for like more than that. And the Roman Empire was Christian in the fourth century. And let's look at the Roman Empire that became Christian in the fourth century. And this is where like this idiotic Protestant thinking, like because a lot of the Protestants that make this kind of like argument, they're conservative, like politically speaking, but they're actually shooting themselves in the foot by making this argument. They say, "Oh, as a Constantine ruined the church," and all this stupid stuff.
Yeah.
If you actually like, if they actually normally like a normal person accepted that maybe Saint Constantine was a Christian. Maybe the ecumenical council that is in line with the Trinitarian thinking that they supposedly support are Christians. And let's look at their social politics, right? Very close to the conservatism that they want to
Yes.
conserve. They have a very easy argument to showcase, hey, look, the Christians later on, none of them were liberals. If Christianity was liberal, you will think the followers. Now, what are they going to say? They're going to say, oh, they're not the real followers. At that stage, you just slap them and tell them, you're an idiot. I'm not going to talk with you. You're a degenerate dog. Go away from me. Because that's a stupid argument. You don't
Right.
respect that kind of an argumentation. Oh, that's a pre-list tier argument. And people in pre-list, it's like you treat a mentally ill patient, right? You have to treat them like a mentally ill person because they are mentally ill,
Right.
and they just are. They really are. Like a normal person will not make an argument saying they're not real Christians. I am a real Christian. 2,000 years later, now get out of here, you clown. So that's what I will tell them is that look, Christians later on they didn't accept this kind of stuff. They rejected. In fact, they looked at this kind of stuff and said, this is what the Greeks come up with. They looked at homosexuality, they said, that's that Greek stuff. We don't do that. Because when I say Greek paganism, right? Not Greek ethnic, but Greek paganism. That's that Greek pagan stuff. That's that, Germanic stuff they do out there. We don't do that kind of stuff.
Right.
And like, I'm going to connect this to Wark. Wark said something very funny that I actually agree with. Wark said patriarchy is Jewish, right? Patriarchy is inherently Jewish. If you say Jewish in the sense of Christian, yes, exactly, 100%. Patriarchy, family structure, yes. Right. Yes, Mark, thank you. Thank you for making our arguments for us. You can keep your matriarchy. You can keep your gay stuff there. You can keep your mayonnaise worshiping ass out there. We will have actual morality, actual theology, actual Christianity, actual faith, and you can have your atheistic stuff here that really the entire world, the evil world, agrees with you. So there is that. Another sense is also ultimately the areas a lot of people associate compassionate understanding with liberalism, right? Oh, if you're compassionate, you're a liberal. That's what they kind of associate with behavior. It's the opposite, okay? It's the exact opposite. Liberals are the most anti-compassionate people I have ever seen in my entire life. These people are a KKK member is more compassionate towards black people than a liberal is. I'm not joking to you. I'm
I know 100%. What you mean.
I've seen they are much more compassionate than liberals are. I mean, 100%. It's their presupposition, their poison presupposition that leads to this kind of thinking. Look, compassion, mercy, they're not liberal virtues. They are Christian virtues. They are right-wing virtues, okay? Just because you think that your kid eating rocks and you can treat it as like, oh, my kid, you can eat rocks all you want. That's not compassion. You're an idiot and you're a degenerate and you're an evil person for letting your kid eat rocks. Right. And the real compassion will be like, first of all, especially I'm coming from a Middle Eastern culture, so the way we handle kids, I will just grab my kid by the neck, let him know, what are you doing? You're eating rocks. You're going to destroy your teeth. You're going to destroy your health. Don't do that stuff. If I see you do it again, look, this is for your own good. If I see you do it again, I'm going to lock you in your own room. I'm going to supervise you in your own room. I'm going to let you have you and we're going to have a good conversation on this if you don't listen to me. Right. And a normal kid will listen to me. A normal kid will listen to his father. But they don't listen to their father because their fathers are liberal, even the conservative ones. Their fathers are weak. Their fathers, they don't do any of that kind of stuff. They're not willing to be harsh because they think being harsh means being evil. Right. No. Being harsh is compassionate.
It's compassion, and exactly.
And ultimately, here's what I'm getting at. The reason why a lot of the behavioral mixtures happen in political alignments is ultimately because people don't have wisdom. What I mean by wisdom, I'm talking about discernment, right? So for example, mercy and justice, these are both Christian virtues. However, at the same time, they're kind of contradictory in a sense. I mean, mercy and justice is contradictory in the sense that, for example, if you apply mercy to someone, you're not being just, right? You're not really punishing him. You're not giving him what he deserves. Think of it that way. Mm-hmm. In some instances, you need justice. In some instances, you need mercy, okay? And thank God, God is merciful, because if he wasn't, none of us will be here. He will have given us what we deserve. But at the same time, in certain instances, God in his infinite wisdom enacts justice. We have seen this in the Old Testament numerous different times. And sometimes, although these are contradictory concepts, they go together well. Like, for example, sometimes justice can be merciful because it teaches you the consequences of what you do. Here's what I'm getting at. In Christianity, Christian morals and Christian ethics, there's a lot of moral concepts that are kind of contradictory that require discernment and good timing to use them. In some places, you need to be harsh, but in some other places, with a different person in the same scenario, you need to be soft-spoken. That's what I'm getting at. So discernment is a huge theme in wisdom literature in the scripture, in the Old Testament. I will recommend people actually read it and try to understand it that way. So this is why, for example, a lot of people get into pacifism and all that. They think war is evil. Like, war is not ideal, but sometimes war is the best option that we can have, right? But that doesn't mean that we promote war. That just means that it's the best possible option that we have. right? So that's an act of discernment. We want peace, but sometimes you reject peace and you go for war. So again, discernment. You need to have a discerning mind. You need to be wise. You need to acquire wisdom. How are you going to acquire it? Reading scriptures, praying to God, and God is going to give it to you. That's how it's going to work. I'm not going to pretend as if I have pure wisdom, because like on softness and harshness, I'm definitely in the harshness scale. Okay.
Hmm.
So I don't have wisdom because I don't know when to be soft, because I'm usually not soft. But it's very important that we kind of understand it this way. They're not opposing inherently, but they are mutually exclusive in certain scenarios, and you have to choose the right one. They're both good things, right? Both options, mercy and justice in this case, both good options. They're both inherently good. But depending on the scenario, this inherent good can cause bad things to happen, right? So that's what I'm getting at. And that this is what a lot of is that they consider these in a dialectical manner, and we have to stop thinking in that manner.
Right.
Sorry, I'm talking too long on this topic, but
No, no, no. That's
it's
key for
very
people to
nuanced, okay?
understand. It's key to understand. Yeah, it is very nuanced. It's
Mhm,
key for people to understand.
mhm,
Yeah, I mean, and kind of just building off that. I mean, I know we don't have much time left. But yeah,
mhm,
that's. I mean, it's actually appalling how few people understand the importance of that discernment and that level of discernment. Um, and I mean,
mhm,
in regards to discernment, and this isn't exactly what you were talking about, but I think that it's important, elections period, but especially with the U.S. presidential
mhm,
elections that we just saw, we saw two candidates who
mhm,
were essentially diametrically opposed, and you know,
mhm,
I think that we many people ran into a problem. I knew several Christians who hesitated to vote for Trump, and they said that it was
mhm,
based, oh, I can't, in good conscience, I can't vote for Trump, and he's, like you were saying, too harsh. And I think that
mhm,
people failed to really understand that this compassion that Biden showed was not true compassion, right?
mhm. Yep.
And yeah, and I think that too many people misunderstood that, and too many people, like Trump needed essentially what you saw. He needed to have a bit of a harsher attitude, because the gravity of the national
Mhm,
situation currently is more severe than it's been as long as I've been alive.
yep.
And I think that many people failed to realize that. But that being said, Father Peter here's talked a little bit about this, and he was talking about the
Mhm,
way that we as Christians should vote. And he was saying how St. Paisios talked about this many years ago, before his repose. And he was saying that essentially, just like how there are olive trees in Greece that are, all of them, not some of them, all of these olive trees in Greece are infected, olive trees, period, are infected with the same disease, right? And
mhm,
when you're picking the olives and stuff, you need to basically pick the ones that have the least infected, that are the least infected.
mhm,
So he was basically applying that to voting, saying that we need to pick the candidate who is least infected. And
mhm,
I guess what I'm asking is, let's say, I don't want to black pill anyone here, but let's say, worst case scenario, we see a Biden presidency. Is it worth
mhm,
ever going out there and voting again, here in America? And I know that it's gonna increasingly get worse in other countries, and you're gonna continue to see this shift to the left, right? Is it worth going out there and voting? What would you say? I mean, because what we're defending right now is the
mhm.
right to life, and that's the most basic
Yeah.
human right. Uh, and
Mhm.
I mean, that's where I was fully convinced to vote for Trump right off the bat. I was defending the
Yeah.
right to life. But are there any, do you think that, in the future, there are going to be many
Mhm.
politicians who are going to be,
Yeah.
not super infected?
So yeah. So first of all, oh, I know Trump has shifted his positions on the pro-life, pro-choice issue in history, but I will say this: get every single person in the pro-life camp, count 90% of them. He'd be much more pro-life than they are. Why? I'm going to explain this why. Because he made the logical conclusion that the mother that does the abortion should also be punished. Now, he didn't punish it to the right degree, but he had the right idea. And guess who attacked him because of that? Pro-life people attacked him because of that. I've seen pro-life people attack him because of that. To those people, I hope you're happy because you're idiots and you have just attacked yourself. You just shot yourselves in the foot. If you think abortion is murder, then the mother is a murderer. It's plain and simple. Okay, there's no way around. I know you want to get this line of, oh, but I wanna promote this like pro-woman side of abortion. You know what's the pro-woman side of abortion? First of all, talking about sexual revolution. Now that's a deep topic. I'm not going to get into it too much. Maybe I'll make a video. I don't know. But that stance like kind of impressed me about Trump. So in terms of if I was American, I will probably have voted Trump. I will most likely have voted, even though I was very disappointed in his presidency for many different reasons. But um, I will say this. So I think I'm not really sure myself on this issue. I'll be completely honest. I mean, at one hand, I see the merit in both arguments. At one hand, I see, um, obviously, yeah, you need to pick the less poisonous olive, uh, and whatever. But at the same time, like there are some elections where whoever candidate, like both candidates support, like there will be instances where both candidates just support anti-Christ policies. So, for example, I think going to wars in the Middle East is just as anti-Christ as your other usual anti-Christ policies. And this is one of the reasons why I was a big Trump supporter, is because look at Trump, 4 years of presidency, no wars in the Middle East. It's like the record. It's like a
Yes,
record in
since
American
Ronald
history.
Reagan.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And that alone should have him reelected without election, in my opinion. Like just without no election, just reelect him again. That alone. And that's a huge thing for me. And you look at all of these liberals, let's go kill people in the Middle East. Let's bomb the 70-year-olds in the Middle East again. How about I bomb you instead, you dumbass? Why would you do something like that? You're subhuman if you believe in this kind of stuff. You're actually subhuman if you actually support this kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm again with a lot of like things like this, I'm very, very harsh. I look at Turkish television, okay? People in Turkish television, I'm not going to say what they deserve, but here's what they do. So, for example, Biden said, and I made a video on this. Biden said during the election that he's going to interfere with Turkish elections and he's going to make sure Erdogan does not get elected again. Now, I voted the Liberal Republican Party. That's the second most popular party. It's the anti-Erdogan party at this stage. So I'm not an Erdogan voter, but I will say this. Look, and I'll give you a reason why I voted for them. I voted for them a long time ago. I don't know if I will vote for them again, but look, Erdogan might be bad, but you know what's worse? An election interfered by the United States. That's worse. I don't like that. I don't want any of that. And a lot of people in the Turkish media was opposed. They're like, Biden, what are you doing? Get in your own lane and that kind of stuff. Now, what are the pundits in the Turkish media saying? Oh, they're acting as if it never happened. They're saying there are Turkish politicians saying Biden needs to like make a democracy call to Turkey, like as if, dude, why are you looking for democracy from America? Did you just look at the way the election was handled?
Yeah.
You are a dog. You are a disgusting dog, and I will spit on your face if I saw you on the street. I'm not kidding. I will spit on that guy's face if I saw him. He is a traitor.
Yeah.
He's a traitor. That's absolutely a traitor. Anyone, in my mind, anyone that's Turkish and is pro-Biden is a traitor. No cap, no cap.
Anyone who's
They're
American
all
is
traitors.
anyone who's American and is pro.
Well,
Biden.
yeah, but any like I'm speaking from my perspective. Anyone
Sure.
in Turkey that's pro-Biden, in my eyes, is a traitor. I'm not saying you have to be pro-Trump, but
Right.
like that's non-negotiable. But so, in regards to that was a bit of an off-topic, but in regards to the election, how you're going to pick. So, for example, in Turkey, abortion is legal. Unfortunately, it
That's
has been
interesting.
legalized a couple of years ago, and the Conservative Party was the one that legalized it. Now, the Liberal Party is obviously pro-abortion. So here's my dilemma in election. Here's my dilemma. Do I vote for this party who supports abortion or the other party who also supports abortion? Am I, by voting for the abortionist party, just enabling abortion? Am I like contributing? So that's a question I think we have to ask ourselves. I don't know what the answer is. I know the answer for sure. If there's one party that's big, that is anti-abortion, like Trump, and you support like Andrew Yang, like a certain fake Orthodox fat deacon does, then you're an idiot. I'm sorry, but you're an idiot. And I said fake Orthodox, he's a schismatic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, right. I mean, so if you support Andrew Yang, so he's abortionist. Like support Trump instead, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
support the pro-life candidate at least.
Right.
But um, but yeah, like compared to if you have a scenario like this, but in here, in my example, I don't have that luxury. Both of them are abortion. Now for me, like the merit of the voting argument is that, well, if I vote for the Liberal Party, there are religious pluralists. Now, it's better, like, I like to be able to worship God in Turkey. I like to be able to live here and worship God as I can. The government doesn't have like the extreme circumstance where they can basically say, "Oh, no, I'm not." Like, if I live in Istanbul, I can do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if the liberals get elected, well, there's a chance that Christianity might be spreading. There's a chance that we might be able to even build some churches here. So there is that. But here's the problem I have with elections and democracy overall. Ultimately speaking, this whole voting stuff, to me, I don't think any of that matters. Like, they just count the votes, they just play with the votes. This election is the greatest proof. They will just play with the votes as much as they possibly can. I don't think elections in Turkey or other countries are even fair. This stuff has happened everywhere in this world. So there is that as well. So it's a bit blackpilling, but yeah, but like whatever you can do, I think ultimately the solution to this problem is not really like, I think the debate on voting is, I think that's not the debate. I think the debate is converting. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really what we should be doing. It's not only converting atheists, but converting people who are right wing but are heterodox, like
Yes.
Protestants and Roman Catholics. I think we should be converting them, and I think that's what, or like atheists as well, obviously. But just that should be our plan, because look, the Roman Empire didn't become like the Roman Empire was pro homo, okay, in a lot of its nations inside the empire. And then after Christianity, it basically became like anti-pluralistic, right? It used to be religious pluralist, now it wasn't. Right? It wasn't pluralist. It was anti-gay and all that kind of stuff. They didn't do that by political policies. They did all of that, like anti-usury, right? Usury was banned and all that because of Christianity. It was because they became Christian.
Right.
So if you make them truly Christian, and what do I mean by Christian? I'm not saying I believe in Jesus and all that. No, 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 not just that. You have to participate in the liturgy, prayer. You have to know the theology. You have to know the faith. You have to know how the faith relates to the politics. You have to know all of that kind of stuff. And that's how I could say you could be like really on the path of like that kind of conversion where you really know what you're talking about. You really know the way the world is going and how you can respond to it. And the moment that happens, like the saints have taught us, I think a real change, political change can happen. I think that's ultimately the only way that can happen. And in regards to the question of voting, unless you vote for like an like a candidate that supports anti-Christ policies, as opposed to the other politician who doesn't support those, who opposes those, maybe he might not be perfect, but he opposed the obvious anti-Christ policies. Obviously, you're a bad guy if you do that. But in scenarios like in Europe or in Turkey, I don't know. I can't comment because I genuinely don't know. But in the case of America, I do know,
Yeah,
so to speak.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's it's not great. We're not given the
Hmm.
best options here, sadly.
Hmm.
And we did see there was a candidate for Senate, Lauren Witzke, here in the United
Yeah.
States. She was Orthodox or an Orthodox catechumen, as far as I'm aware. But you
Hmm.
don't see much Orthodox representation, and that's the unfortunate result of Orthodoxy not
Hmm.
coming to America until the 19th century. And even then, when did it come to America? Or where did it come to America? It came to America through Alaska, right, from Russia. So I think
Yep.
that it's unfortunate that we haven't done a great job of evangelization, and I think we need to work on that. I think guys like you and Jay Dyer are doing a fantastic job, and I think we're slowly going to start working to the point where we have a bit of influence in the state, and we got to keep working to where
Hmm.
we eventually can get there. But anyway, let's go ahead. Let's move on and check our super chats real quick. I think we had at least one here.
Nice.
Just see what people are saying. All right, so
Hmm.
okay, we have one from Trince Ladentro for €5. Thank you so much. And he says, I am an ex Wignat like David. He is so right about
Hmm.
lefties not dropping their baggage. I dismissed and
Hmm.
disavowed all my beliefs that weren't compatible because they were wrong.
Hmm.
Lefties try to shape orthodoxy into something else. God knows better.
Hmm.
That's so true.
Exactly.
That's exactly what it
100%.
is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Um, and we got, I mean, I think that
I
right
mean,
wingers are somehow more able to do that. Maybe it's because they're already closer. They're already closer
mhm.
to what
I
we.
mean, leftism is a mental disease. It's really, it just is. It's inherently anti-God. Everything liberalism is for is against the concepts of Christianity. So it's really not surprising when leftists come to Orthodox and they try to destroy it. Whereas the inherent understanding of the right wing is to maintain what is true. Okay. Whereas liberalism, its inherent purpose is to subvert what is true. That's how I see these kind of two uh political divergence at least. And I think that's how it really is right now if you look at the last couple centuries.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's a shame. Um, anyway, David, it was great to have you on today, man. Thanks so much. It was a great conversation. I'll definitely have to have you on
Yeah.
again, because there's so much
Hmm.
more that we could really
Sure.
dive into here.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah, thanks again, and thank you to our viewers for watching. We had a
Hmm.
great amount. I think we hit over 80 at one point, which was
So we
awesome.
had we had 70 people at least, which is pretty good. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
awesome,
Uh-huh.
awesome. All right,
So
well,
people want this stuff more, yeah.
yeah, exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. Thank God. So, David, have a great night, and to all of our viewers,
Hmm.
have a great night, and I will see you all next Thursday. So, God bless you all.
Sure.